Hey guys, how you doing? Tuesday morning devotional, back at you again. We're doing this new series, Short Shots from the Old Testament. And last week we started by looking at Gideon. We're going to continue with Gideon a little bit today. Gideon in Judges chapter 6. Remember, his name is related to the idea of Gadah, the Hebrew word Gadah, which means to cut down. And so he's the guy who cuts down, the one who cuts down. So he cuts down the Asherah poles, he cuts down the enemy, that sort of thing. That's kind of his deal. So anyway, the second chapter of Gideon's story, Gideon chapter 7, this is kind of the famous scene where there's tens of thousands of soldiers in Israel. And they all show up to fight. They're ready to fight the Midianites and take them down and do what they have to do in order to get justice, to get freedom, because they're being oppressed by this outside country that's coming in and oppressing them and all that kind of stuff. And so they're ready to fight, and God basically says, tell anybody who wants to, if they don't want to fight, if they're cowardly, they can go home, and 22,000 leave. And then he says, okay, take the rest of them and take them down to the brook and see how they drink water, and only the ones who drink this certain way. And basically it goes from tens of thousands of people all the way down to 300. And with these 300 people, through wit and using their clever brains, they surround the Midianites and at night with the torches and that whole thing. You may remember the story. You can read it if you want to. Judges chapter 7. But they use their brains and the plan of God to defeat the enemies. And I think this is interesting. I mean, I've taught this to junior hires before and said, if you're going to plan for a trip, what would you do? You'd pack a suitcase and set an itinerary and take some money with you and maybe get a plane ticket, all that kind of stuff. What if you did all that and God said, you know what, just for your trip, just don't take anything, don't take any money, just go, clothes on your back, that's it, right? That's maybe a modern example, a much less dramatic modern example of what's going on. But there's some sayings we say in the evangelical church sometimes about, God will never call you to do anything that he hasn't equipped you to do, stuff like that. Here, God calls Gideon to do something he's not equipped to do, but Gideon equips himself. He's got these soldiers, and then God de-equips him before he goes and does it, right? And so I don't know if this is, it's certainly not always the way God works, or even maybe most of the time, but the point seems to be here that whatever success comes out of this, it is 100% God responsible for the results, not Gideon, not the soldiers, not the weapons, not anything like that. It's 100% God. And this is a theme of the Old Testament. Again, we don't see this like de-equipping kind of thing going on. That's the thing that I think is pretty rare. But this theme of like knowing that God is the one who provides the outcome, that's a pretty common theme in the Old Testament. I think of Deuteronomy chapter 8 at the end, where he's talking about promised land, Moses presumably in Deuteronomy 8 talking about the promised land, and he says, you're going to get to the promised land, you're going to build fine houses and settle down, don't forget the Lord. And it ends kind of there towards the end of chapter 8. You might say, my power and the work of my hands has produced this wealth for me. But remember, it's the Lord who even gives you the ability to produce wealth. And so that's maybe the reminder of Gideon, that whatever outcome we have, credit kind of goes to God, right? I mean, we may use our clever wit, we may use the resources available to us, and I think God, most of the time, probably wants us to use those things. But yeah, can we trust God for the ultimate result, whether we have what it takes or we don't, right? And so this is just kind of an interesting, iconoclastic, maybe a little backwards story of God de-equipping Gideon for the task, and yet it works out anyway. Hope you guys are doing well. We'll be back next week for another Tuesday morning Devo, holylandventures.net, if you want to come to Israel with me in March. Thanks.